Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. There's a lot of information that's been going out regarding the coronavirus and programs available for small businesses. It gets very confusing. So we invited Julio Casiano and Bill Tierney from the SBA to come and maybe answer your questions. So Julio, I think you're going to give us a brief overview of the PPP and EIDL grants and loans, and then we'll open up to questions. So if you have a specific question, please put it in the chat and we'll make sure that we ask them and hopefully we answer everybody's questions. Julio, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you and good morning, chamber members and small businesses and other folks that are nonprofits that are on the call. Good morning, and again, and bear with us here with SBA and this program in terms of what's been happening in the last few days. We've been up and running since the middle of March when we initiated what everyone's calling the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And then within that context, we also included the Advanced Emergency Loan Program that was launched last Monday, and then just recently, this past Friday, what we refer to as the Payroll Protection Program, or everyone's referring to as the PPP, was just launched. So in the last, I would say about 3 weeks, SBA's had around 4 different, or up to maybe 5 programs that have been launched or have been in existence for in terms of trying to help everyone that's in the issues that they are right now, specifically with the coronavirus. What I wanted to just bring up, and I know that some of you folks probably have questions in terms of applied, where's my information, where's my loan? That, from what I gather, in the next day or two, most of you will probably be receiving information. I know from talking to other states, that's been being rolled out since yesterday. So bear for another day or two. Hopefully by tomorrow, if not by the end of the week, everyone should know exactly what under the advance and also under the EIDL program, what they would be getting. We don't have here at the office, I don't have access to that information. And usually we just refer the client to the SBA the disaster phone number, and I could give you that now for those that have not been able to get any information on their existing applications. If you could just dial 1-800-659-2955. I'll repeat that again, 1-800-659-2955. That's our answer center in Buffalo, and they're there to help you try to kind of figure out where and what process your applications are at. And again, you could, in terms of, Diana working with us, and we've been, really trying to
Julio, you still with us?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. We have a glitch in the matrix. Hold on for a moment. And Lisa, we got your question. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yep. Where did Julio go?
All right. We'll give him a moment.
Yeah. Let me see if I can give him a call.
Oh, he fell off. Okay, please stand by as we pull Julio up.
Do you see him there, Steve? I'm not getting him on his phone.
Mailbox.
Yep, we'll check our emails. And Cindy, hold on. We'll get that phone number. John will get that phone number. He'll be right back on. So yes, this is one of the challenges for those of you who have been using Zoom. We've been having some, I don't want to say a technical challenge, but we've had some capability challenges. Hopefully he'll be able to join us. Oh, there we go. The phone number, I'm going to put it in the chat box. Everyone should see that.
Steve, I typed it in there for them.
Right. You got to make sure it goes to all the attendees as well as the panelists, please.
Okay.
Thank you. All right,
Do
Diane.
we have Julio back or no?
We do not at the moment. Anything we can do in the meantime?
Yeah, let me see what I can get here for a second.
Please bear with us.
So there was a great question and answer sheet that came out regarding the PPP, and I will mention the questions and the answers, and maybe that will help people. So one of them was paragraph 3B of the Paycheck Protection Program interim of the rule says that lenders must confirm the dollar amount of average monthly payroll cost for the preceding year by reviewing payroll documentation. Does that require that the lender replicate every borrower's calculation? So the answer is no. Providing an accurate calculation of payroll costs is the responsibility of the borrower or the business. So the answer is no. The next question was, are small business concerns, as defined in Section 3, so under 500 people, required to have under 500 feet, are they eligible borrowers of the PPP? Yes. Nonprofits and small businesses under 500 employees. Some of these questions are pretty simple. Even I could answer them. Does my business have to qualify as a small business under normal SBA consideration to participate in the PPP? And the answer is no. Other people, like nonprofits, private nonprofits, can apply. 501c3s, 501c19s, which are veterans groups, and any of the tribal business organizations can also apply. Are lenders required to make an independent determination regarding the applicability of these rules? So do they have flexibility? Does the bank have flexibility in determining who can borrow and who can't? And the answer is no. It's the responsibility of you, the business person, to determine if you are eligible, and it's up to you to determine the employee head count. Lisa, the question that you had about having problems finding a lender that is not, that you don't have a bank through, that is a problem. If you go to the SBA's website, there's several organizations there that are giving loans that are not banks. Those are the ones. I would caution anybody that doesn't go to a bank, because I've even seen things come across that QuickBooks is offering loans. That you have to be careful with, because if they're not on the list, I wouldn't trust them. Here's another question. The CARES Act excludes from the definition of payroll costs any employee compensation in excess of $100,000. So if you get a PPP, you're giving them the average monthly salary of your employees. Anybody who makes over $100,000, that additional money over $100,000 is not to be included. So the exclusion of the compensation in excess of $100,000 applies only to the cash compensation, not to the non-cash benefits, including employer contributions defined by benefits, payment for the provision of employee benefits like group health care, and payment of state and local taxes. So again, what that means is that $100,000 is only in wages. You can still claim in addition to that, their health insurance and state and local taxes based on their compensation. So the 100,000 is only on their salary. Do PPP loans cover paid sick leave? Yes. They cover payroll costs, including costs for employee vacations, family, medical, and sick leaves. Okay. My business is a seasonal business whose activity increases from April to June. Considering activity from that period would be a more accurate reflection of my business's operations. However, my small business was not fully ramped up on February. Am I still eligible? So yes, you're eligible. In evaluating a borrower's eligibility, the bank can consider whether the seasonal borrower or you were open in February 15th or for an 8-week period between February and June 30th. So your banker can be flexible with the 8-week period that they're looking to average out your wages. So a lot of people we've had call in and say, hey, I don't even open my business until May 1st normally, so I can't use February 15th through now as that in the calculation of my average monthly salary because I don't have any. So you can use 8 weeks period between February 15th and June 30th, whichever one works for when you're opening as a seasonal borrower. You can talk to your bank about that. That's our understanding. What if an eligible borrower contracts with a third-party payer, such as a payroll provider or professional employee organization, to process their payroll? The answer to that is SBA recognizes that you as a business can use these or similar payroll providers. In these cases, the payroll documentation provided by the payroll person, the payroll provider, that indicates the amount of wages and payroll can be that they report to the IRS will be considered acceptable PPP loan payroll documentation. So if you hire a company to do your payroll, their documentation of what they send and report to the IRS is your evidence of payroll. I'm going to take a look and see if we have any other questions. If you do, please submit them. We still haven't been, no word from either Bill or Julio.
I think I'm on.
Oh, Julio! Yay!
I don't know what happened. I was totally locked out and took me a few minutes. I'm sorry. This is technical. I imagine a lot of folks around the country, because these are bandwidths, and for some reason I lost my internet connection in it. But
well, I'm happy you're there because I was trying to answer some questions off of the question and answer sheet, and I'm not sure if I confused people more or I was able to answer any of the questions, but you take over.
Yeah, I was going to try it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just upload. I don't know if I could upload the, no, I can't at the moment. But basically, there are two forms that, let me just run forward with the payroll protection program. And this was hastily put together because a lot of this information is brand new in terms of having the U.S. Treasury. And if you just go on to ustreasury.gov, you will see that they have on top of the screen a connection to the coronavirus and all the forms that SBA requires on both your end and in terms of you as a business, and also for lenders in terms of their questions, etc. A lot of the information is really being driven not only by SBA, but the U.S. Treasury, since the funding is coming to them through SBA, then to the banks. And usually what's been happening is we're not providing money directly to the banks. These are in forms of guarantees. The banks are the ones providing 100% of the money that you're in need of, and then the SBA in turn guarantees them 100% and of any time is trying to deal with a lot of their questions in order for them to provide the money back to you. And in the last couple of days, and honestly, this was just rolled out on Friday. Monday was when we really had most of the banks up and running. And even up through today, we're still working. And Bill, who's, like I said, on the lender relations side. See right there is, if you notice on the bottom here, you see all of the forms that basically are now available to you as a business and also to the banks. And the form that I'm more interested in you looking at is the fourth one that says borrow application form. And that's the form that you as a business need to fill. And here's just basic information. Really what you're going to need to know and understand is that this money technically is for payroll. This has nothing to do with any other needs in your business. You do allow to include rent. You're allowed to include utilities, but you're only going to get paid probably back not 100% of that part, but you will get paid in full for your payroll up to, if you combine both of them, 75% would be your payroll and about 25% would be your other costs that you've been including. So in terms of how this is done, just to show you, it's not a lot of information. You just need to get your records in order. You need to, if you have a payroll company, ADP or someone like that, just have that immediately with you, because that's what the bank is going to be looking at in terms of verifying. The banks really are going to be looking for you to provide the information. They're only going to be verifying what you're providing. So your information should be as accurate and as good as possible. So make sure you have that information. If you have rent payments, just provide them with that information. If you have utilities, just get all your bills together and provide that information to them also. Now, all I just wanted to indicate on the forms in here is that these are your questions in terms of the type of business that you're in, also that you're not a lobbyist and stuff like that. So these are just generic questions that the government just wants to ask, and you should be able to answer. Most of the information in terms of the application is in page 1. So if you go to page 1, that's really where the data is at. The rest of it is just information about certain regulations that the government just wants to make sure that you understand what you're doing. But in general, the average monthly payroll, just for instance, and I'm just using, say, a payroll, and for, you have to go back to 2019. So let's say for the whole year of 2019, your payroll was 120,000. You divide that by 12, that's your average payroll. And then you're going to multiply that by 2.5 times. That would be then what would be included for your payroll, which according to the government is supposed to be 8 weeks. So that's kind of what the formula is for the 8 weeks. Then the number of employees you had in that payroll. So that's the number that you're going to be looking towards to see whether or not you could get funded for that 8-week period. And again, on the other boxes just below it, if you're including any other items, lease payments, mortgage interest, utilities, you would be checking off those boxes and then and provide that information to the lender. Under the owner's names, those would be the owners that are in the business. If it's a non-for-profit, the senior person would then just put their information in there. Please put 80% of ownership, because what's going to happen is that the lender, the way these systems work, you have to provide 100% of ownership. And so even though you're not guaranteeing and there's no security in there, the person who's representing that organization is the one that will probably be putting their title and ownership in there. And just put in 80%, because if not, the system won't be able to complete the process when the lender gets that. And again, that information is just for not-for-profits. It's just that the SBA needs to know who's the person applying for this, but these loans are not secured by any collateral. And then on the other boxes is just questions that you would just need to answer in terms of specific questions on the form. So that really is it. Then on the lender side, they have a similar form that they're going to put information on. And so those are basically the steps that would get you that application over to the bank. Most of the banks are using their online. So you need to check with the bank, go to their website. Most of them have it up and running. You might have to call the bank. If you don't have a lender and you're having concerns that your lender or your bank is not interested in working with you, we have a website, sba.gov/Connecticut, and you will find a list of there's a form that we attached there that has SBA lenders, and you might try to reach out to them. I would probably now, I need to see if we could answer some questions. Bill is on the line also. I only have a minute or two. I need to go on to another call also. So Bill will stay on to try to answer some of the questions while I move on to another call. This has been really, we're getting inundated with, especially with congressional assistants. They need us to support them because also the constituents are calling them. So I'm going to be jumping into another call in a minute. But Bill will be around to answer any questions if Bill is there, hopefully.
Bill, are you there? Julio,
Yes.
can you answer one or two questions before you have to go?
Yes, go ahead.
So you gave everyone the answer that if their banks aren't willing to work with them, they can go to your website and get a list of non-banks or other people who are willing to work with them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So one of these questions here is they're asking you to please discuss the loan forgiveness for PPP. And a couple other questions are regarding the 75-25 percentage. How does the forgiveness work?
The forgiveness works once the 8 weeks in the cycle is completed, say June 30th is the final date within the regulation or the way they drafted this regulation. So after that period, you would be then submitting your payroll for that time. That would have, let me try to lower.
Thank you. Hello, Julio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Give me one second here.
Unmute your line so you can speak freely.
Give me one second.
And we also have Dante Bartolomeo here from the State Department of Labor.
You can see here, it's multiple calls. So that basically is that at the end of the 8-week period, you would then be providing your lender with information on your payroll of people and the amount. It should match with what you submitted. So hopefully, if you didn't, it would be then prorated based on the application. And then, but you would be working with your lender. There's more information coming out through the U.S. Treasury on that. So bear with us on that because that's not the final notification as to how those things could get calculated.
Okay, can you just clarify, when does the 8-week period start? The paperwork all says at the date, the loan, the origination date of the loan. So when do you start calculating the dollars spent that can be used for the forgiveness?
That'll be, you have 60 days from the date that you get approved to get funding, and you have through up to June 30, really, to get your employees back on payroll. So from the date that you get your funding up and running, you have, now you can take it out in tranches, but my understanding is up to the lender. Most lenders might want to give the money out all at once.
Okay, so I applied for this loan on April 1st, and I get approved. I'm not going to see my money for 60 days. I won't see my money?
No, you have 60 days to sign your note and get your money.
Okay, so I apply on April 1st.
Remember, you get approved, say you get approved April 1st, you got 60 days to draw down.
Okay.
And so you got 60 days from the time that you got approved by the bank. So say you get approved today and the bank says, when are you coming in? You have 60 days to come in and take that money.
Okay. And so the origination date or the time that you can start calculating your expenses for the forgiveness is when you pick up the money, not when you're approved.
When you sign the loan, when it's dispersed.
Okay, but you have a 60-day window to be able to do that. So, for example, if I'm a restaurant or I'm a non-essential business and I'm not opening up until, let's hope, May 1st, if my loan is ready today, I may not want to pick it up today. I may want to wait till May 1st when I bring back all my employees. Is that correct?
Right. But you need to discuss that with your lender to make sure that they allow you to do that because they control how the money is dispersed.
Okay, so that has to be an agreement, but basically the start date is when you get your money, and you have to work that date out with your lender.
Right, right, because they might, the different lenders want to do things differently, and so please talk to them, and if they have any questions, they usually call us. So let me, I have to get off here because I'm going to have to jump in onto this other call. But Diane, next week, same time, same station. Hopefully we have more information and probably a PowerPoint, because this is a living document. And as we're speaking, I don't have as much information as I wish I could have passed on to you, but hopefully by next Wednesday we should.
Okay. I do, and I thank you for coming. I know that you're crazy. I have one other quick question that a lot of people are asking. If you applied for the EIDL loan and you got the $10,000, does that get subtracted from the money that you are applying for in PPP?
No, that's net of that amount. So if you got $100,000 approved for your payroll or through the EIDL, the 10,000 is not included in that.
Okay, so that's an additional 10,000 that you could get.
Right.
Forgivable 10,000 that you could get
That's
to help pay
correct.
your mortgage.
Up to, right, and the question there is up to 10,000 because SBA is behind the scenes is saying that it's the $10,000 is based on how many employees you have. So just be aware of that in case you don't see a full $10,000 advance. You might see less, and it's based on employees.
Do you have any kind of idea of calculations? So people who might be thinking they're getting 10,000 and have 2 employees may only get what?
Right. From what my understanding is $1,000 per employee.
Oh, wow. That's big.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But just wait until you see your amount to confirm that, so that just to be assured.
Okay. Well, that doesn't help very many people that have 1 or 2 employees. For sure.
Right, but that doesn't include when you apply for that, they will also be giving you the working capital, so there might be more money than just that. So when you're applying, you basically applying not only for the advance, but also for the additional money.
Okay, so that advance then, since it's based on number of employees, is that supposed to be used specifically for payroll or anything, or can be used for anything?
No, it's whatever your needs are, but it supposedly was to keep your business in operation.
Well, okay.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll set you up and let everybody know about next week if we have to. There's a couple questions here that are somewhat simple. We may be able to answer. One of them was what documentation. So Julio, good luck, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.
All right. One of the other questions said what documentation will need to be submitted after a PPP loan is received to qualify for the loan forgiveness. And the only answer that we've gotten from everyone is you have to talk to your bank about that and ask them, because you're going through, if you're doing the PPP loan, you're doing this one-on-one with your bank, your lender. So that is the person you need to discuss what they want. For payroll documentation, if you have a payroll company, generally what they're filing for taxes is going to be the standard. Anything that you file with the IRS or the state that shows your payroll during a period of time will be considered good evidence or proof. Other than that, if you're a smaller company and maybe you don't submit those taxes, which would be unique, but you'd have to get those specific questions answered by your lender. And some of them, as it seems, things change as we go. That information that Julio just gave us, that you're $1,000 per employee, is completely new. How this has been presented to all of us is that any company who applies for the EIDL will get an unknown amount of money determined by the SBA, but that the first 10,000 of that would be forgivable, which is supposed to keep you operating during this emergency. But I don't see how a one-person company or a self-employed person, or even the Chamber of Commerce, for example, how $1,000 is going to help you stay in business during this time when we're all shut down. So that's interesting, and we'll follow up and see what we can get on that, and maybe write a few letters and talk to our congressman and the powers to be. The other question here is, I applied for the COVID EIDL loan through the SBA website. Do I need to go through a financial institution also? No, absolutely not. The EIDL loan can only be applied through the SBA website. Generally, this process goes as follows. You apply for the EIDL. You will hear in 3 to 4 weeks if we're lucky, from a loan officer who may ask you for additional information and send you a form that you might have to fill out. You will deal with that loan officer mostly via email for however long until they're satisfied with the information they've gotten from you. Then they will offer you an amount. So they might say, we feel that we can offer you $150,000. It might be $400,000. We are not privy to the calculation and how that is done, but they will give you an amount, and then it's up to you to decide how much of that amount you want to keep. The original thought was the first $10,000 of that was non-repayable, but I guess that has changed as of now, and again, we'll get clarification. That money, if they offer you $150,000, you can decide to take $10,000 or the full $150,000. All of the loan, except for that initial $10,000, or now we're hearing maybe only $1,000 or $2,000, does have to be repaid at 3.75% for businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. And it is over a certain period of time. You can defer your payments for 6 months up to a year in some cases. That can be worked out with the SBA. One of the other question here is, what does the gray box next to the average monthly payroll mean? I think what you're referring to on the PPP application is the question where they ask about the EIDL loan, that second middle one there, the times 2.5 plus EIDL net advance. We've gotten different answers on that. That was what I was trying to get Julio to clarify, and I don't think we got an answer for that. In working with Greg Lewis from the SBDC, he said that that is basically, if you've gotten any money from the EIDL, you put that amount there, but I don't know. I don't have an answer. I think the best thing to do is ask the bank what they think that means, because that's who you're dealing with. On these PPPs, all of the questions kind of get funneled to the banks. Talk to your bank, talk to your bank. And we're also finding out with people calling and that ones that we're working with that some banks give different answers. So again, I'm not sure 100% what it is, but if the bank is the one that's handing you the check, that's who you're gonna go with. That would be my professional best advice. Full-time and part-time employees, again, I'm not 100% sure what that question means, but when you're looking at, when they're evaluating payroll and number of employees returning, they're all full-time equivalents. So it's not an exact number of people, but it's full-time equivalent. So if you have 3 people that work, 13 and a half hours each, that's 1 full-time equivalent. Do I include payroll for me if I am a single member LLC and are not included in weekly payroll but take a draw? So the answer to that so far from everyone we've heard is yes. You can include your payroll as part of the matching, payback period, of salary. It's all of your employees' salary that you pay during that 8-week period, plus your draws, or any payroll that you pay yourself as the owner or single member of an LLC. Now that needs to be consistent with what you've done in the past, and it should be calculated in for your initial monthly average payroll. So if last year you took a draw of $200 a week, you can't expense $800 a week this year. They have to be the same. So be careful of that. This person says, does the EIDL $10,000 grant use the same percentage, 75% payroll, 25% other expenses? No, it does not have any calculation. It just has to be used, first of all, to be eligible for the EIDL grant, you have to be a business or a private nonprofit that can show that the coronavirus has affected your business in a negative way, which none of us can say that hasn't happened. You borrow as much money from that, including the $10,000, to be used on expenses related to costs from the coronavirus or your standard operating capital costs. So you can use the entire EIDL grant for things like utilities, rent, insurance, car insurance, health insurance for your employees, employee salaries, any of those costs that are normal operating costs. you can use that grant for, and in no particular percentage either way. The one thing that the EIDL you can use and that you can't use for the PPP are mortgage payments. You can use interest on the mortgage payment as part of the 25% cost with the PPP, but you cannot use your actual mortgage payment. With the EIDL, you can use that money to pay a mortgage payment as well as the interest. I was told that the $10,000 grant money got subtracted from the PPP funding once received. I have never heard differently. He just said to us, no, that it is not subtracted from the PPP funding. This has been a question that we've been asking for clarification on for about a week now, because that little gray box that we're talking about was not on the original grant or the loan application. That was new, and it was thrown out there like on Friday night as a new box, and none of us even understood what they were looking for. And it's now Wednesday, and I still don't really have 100% concrete answer that I'm confident with. When I've talked to the SBA, when I talked to DECD, they are all saying to us that no, the $10,000 EIDL grant money or loan money is not subtracted from the PPP funding. And I think you all just heard Julio say that. Why it's there and how that is set up on the application, I am not sure. I can also tell you that the advice that we got, if you don't already have that $10,000, if you haven't been granted any money there, then you would put 0 there because you don't have it yet. That is what Greg from the SBDC said to us. That is still an unclear question, and I apologize for not having the answer, but I did submit a dozen questions that we keep hearing from people, the same questions over and over again. I submitted to them for them to be able to answer on this, and I don't think we got any of them answered, but that is one. If we those questions and the ones that you're asking here today, if we get those, you're going to see them in our email blasts. If you haven't signed up for our electronic email, you should. We've been dealing with the regional people from SBA, USDA, legislators, DECD, the governor, to try to get the answers as fast as we can and send them to you. On Thursday, tomorrow night, we have a webinar that we're hosting with the governor and the lieutenant governor that starts at 5 o'clock. They too will also get these questions, and hopefully they will be able to give us concrete answers. They are bringing in someone from the DECD, Department of Labor, so a lot of questions about unemployment and the paid family leave and the $600 unemployment payments. Those still are not set up in the system, so those are still not available. We hope to get those questions answered tomorrow night. Any other webinars that I happen to be on for the rest of today and tomorrow that come up with any of these questions, the answers to these questions, I will be sending out in an email to all of you. As a single LLC owner, can I include my health insurance costs? I do not pay health insurance for employees as they are insured other ways. Again, our understanding is as long as the healthcare costs are part of a business expense and it's paid through the business, it can be included. Now, you don't say what program it's for, so health insurance costs for you or your employees can be covered under both. There's only up to 25% of your PPP loan amount can be used for things like utilities and such, but any employee costs and benefits go into the 75%. So healthcare costs, vacation, sick time that they've requested, all of that. So if you're back in operating and for 8 weeks, all of your employee costs during that 8 weeks. If you make 2 insurance payments during that for both months, that's included. If you pay somebody a day off because they are out sick, that's included. If they take a week vacation during those 8 weeks, that week of vacation pay to them is included. So I hope that answers the question. My first 2 quarters of 2019 payroll is skewed from the 3rd and the 4th quarter to the present because we joined the union in the end of April 2019. So I provided the 2020 payroll showing my increase in payroll cost. I am hoping this will suffice. Again, if you're talking about the PPP program, the lender, the bank, is going to be the one that makes the final decision on these things, not the SBA. So if you go in and you show them the difference and that there was a huge change and that your payroll costs have dramatically changed from the beginning of last year, they may work with you and take maybe those 6 months to figure it out, or at least give you some, at the worst case scenario, you'll be able to get enough money for the PPP that will cover what your payroll was before you join the union. So you'll at least get that much, and it will not cover the full amount. I believe, and most lenders and banks are saying, that they're willing to work with people as much as possible. So that question is really going to be up to your individual bank to decide. I think we've gone through most of these questions that have been submitted. If anyone has any others, feel free to send them in. Someone else asked, when you get a PPP loan, the forgiveness part is 75% for payroll and 25% of utilities. So if you only use the 25% for the utilities and none for payroll, will the loan still be forgiven? So the way that it works is if you're borrowing $100,000, 75,000 of that, you need to show that you spent that money on payroll. The 25,000 or 25%, you can use that for payroll also. But if you don't use it for payroll, you can use it for utilities. But you're only going to be able to match the grant $1 for $1 if you have at least spent 75% of that loan on payroll, and you have brought back the same number of employees. So let me just qualify. If you open up if you're not going to open up until May 1st and you get this loan on April 15th, those first 2 weeks when you have no payroll, for example, okay, you have no payroll because your employees aren't back yet, you haven't opened yet, you're not going to be able to match the grant 1 for 1 because you haven't brought them all back. The ideal situation is to get the loan approved and then pick up the check so you have an origination date of when you are opening. If you're asking for large amounts of money and this grant is pretty big and you have a lot of money on the table here, you want the idea of this, the purpose of this program is for you to call back all of your employees and have them come back to work, whether you have work for them or not. They are trying to get people off of unemployment and back to work. So some businesses are choosing to bring their people back and paying them and having them be at home. They're bringing them back and they're paying them to do things like landscaping and painting and cleaning. Other people are not having everybody come back. And if you don't have the same number of employees return to work as you had pre-crisis, which was in January, then you will not match 1 to 1. You will match at a lower percentage. We don't have the exact calculation, but to make an assumption, maybe you only match it for every dollar that you spend in that 8-week period, you may only get 80 cents of forgiveness on the loan. So the key to the success of getting 100% of forgiveness for the PPP is to make sure that that all of your employees that you had pre-corona are back working and working at the same amount of hours. Otherwise, it will not match 100%. So it's not so much, and again, at least 75% of that money should go to payroll. If you're truly bringing back all of your employees, it should be easy because you're getting money based on 2.5 months of payroll. And you only have to count expenses for 2 months of payroll. So you should be able to make that 75% mark easily. I hope that makes sense. Let me see if there's any more questions that came in. I don't see any. What is the website for the $10,000 grant and can I still apply? Yes, that is through the SBA. It is called the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan. I see my trusty assistant here is pulling that up for you. You can still apply for that. There is some funding there available. The PPP funding, they within hours literally gave out millions of dollars, and in the first day, billions of dollars. And there's something like $350 billion put aside for that program, and they're already talking based on the responses and applications that they're getting, they need to add extra money to that. So they're going to eventually have to go back to Congress to have them vote to put more money into that program. They don't think that they can fund it. So if you're thinking of doing it, you should do it sooner than later. Again, right now, some banks literally were able to approve within an hour. I think that is more based on if you're a very big and important customer of a bank, you may get faster results. But around here, everyone I'm hearing from, even those that applied on Friday the 3rd, very few of them have gotten approval. Some are just going in and meeting with the bank now about a week later. So make sure when you talk to your bank about this that you plan carefully when you're bringing your employees back. And I also caution this, please make sure you talk to your employees about this, okay? The ones that you have furloughed, if you have furloughed them, because they need to have a plan. It needs to be very clear when the return to work date is. So if you're getting the money on April 23rd, and that's your beginning period, and you want to open your business on the 23rd and bring them back, you should give them at least a week's notice that you're calling them back from unemployment. The way that you need to do that is not a phone call, text message, or email. You can send all of those and let them know, but to protect yourself, you absolutely need to send a certified letter via the old-fashioned USPS and tell them that they are being called back to work starting on whatever date, April 23rd. What we are finding are some employees are ignoring emails, text messages, and the like because they want to stay on unemployment, especially if they have a bunch of kids at home that they have to deal with, or they're afraid of the virus, or they're thinking about the unemployment check of $600 a week that may be coming at some point soon. So you have to put it in writing, send it via certified letter that you are starting you're opening your business and you're calling them back to work. The sad part about this is if they don't respond to that and they don't come back to work, you're required and should, and this is the really sucky part, is to email. We have that information and we'll send it out to you again, but to email the Department of Labor and say, I've called my employees back via certified letter. They were expected to come to work on the 23rd, and these 3 employees are refusing. Here's their name and social security number. That is supposed to make them ineligible for unemployment because they do have legitimate work. What will happen then is when your employees will get a notice from unemployment saying you no longer are eligible because you were called back to work and you refused, they have to make a case then. It'll go to a hearing. They can tell unemployment the reasons why they could not come back. And then it's up to unemployment to decide whether it's legitimate or not. So make sure you plan this very carefully with your employees, because if you are going to open and you're counting on paying them as part of this whole matching forgiveness thing, you better make sure that they're actually willing to come back and can come back at the time that you're expecting them to. So that's my best advice on that. We are planning many of these webinars. This was an update to the PPP. A lot of the questions that we thought we would have answered didn't, and I apologize for that. Tomorrow there's another webinar. I've mentioned this with the Lieutenant Governor, the Governor, DECD, SBA, and Department of Labor. They are all supposed to be there. Let's hope that they are. We were supposed to have people on this call that did not come, and obviously it was a surprise to me about 15 minutes before the webinar that Julio was not going to be on it the whole time, and then another gentleman from SBA that was supposed to be here just couldn't get on. That would be Bill Tierney from the SBA, so we apologize for all of that. Tomorrow's meeting should be very interesting. I think it's going to be more state related and what the state is doing for people. So if you're interested in that, you can sign on. Most of these are being recorded, and we will have them on our website available. If you go to the coronavirus page of our website, you'll have it there. I am on a few other webinars today and tomorrow, and the same questions, like I said, are being asked that you are all asking, so hopefully we'll get those answers. So folks, I hope that you are all able to stay healthy.
Diane?
Yep.
Are we going to be here same time next week?
I guess so. That was news to me. But I'm very happy to have Julio and the SBA come every Wednesday at 11 o'clock for a webinar. I will confirm that with him next week. And then again, you'll see that in our electronic newsletters going out. A couple other things coming up. We have if any of you are out there related to a creative business or an artist or any kind of a gallery, theater guilds, I mean, we're all businesses. We have a special meeting next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, a webinar on how this virus is affecting the arts and art businesses. So you can join on with that. These conferences seem to take on a life of their own, like this morning. This was a lot of things happened just this morning, not how we had planned. So we'll try to do the best that we can. The last question that came in for those of you that are still there, I thought employees could not collect unemployment if a company is utilizing the PPP program. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. That's the whole idea of the PPP program, is to bring your people back to work. So if you're opening up your business and you're getting a PPP loan, the loan works. You only get the matching dollars if you bring back all the employees that you laid off. You have to bring back your pre-corona number of employees. Now, technically, you don't have to bring back the same ones, but that's the whole plan. That's the whole idea. They cannot be collecting unemployment from home while you're getting money to pay them to be working. If an employee refuses to come back, and you have to hire somebody else to fill that spot, you can do that, and you can use that other, that new person's payroll for your PPP program and your match. But the employee who refused to come back, you're under obligation to turn them into unemployment because they have refused to take their job back, which kind of puts us in a really awkward situation with people that may have worked for us for a long time, but that's how it works. So be very careful. You cannot collect the money from you can still get the money for the PPP program. They'll give it to you, but it'll end up being a loan that you will have to pay back unless you bring back 100% of your employees. So I hope that clarified that. And that's why your employees need to understand very carefully about unemployment and how stuff has to work that way. Okay, so I hope everybody stays healthy. I hope that you can all find fun and crazy things. At least we're not France, where they just voted or made a law that says you can't exercise outside anymore in France. I think I would go absolutely bonkers if I had to stay inside the whole time. So be healthy, try to be happy, and don't forget your pets. I mean, those poor guys are used to sitting around the house all day with their feet up and nobody to bother them. And here we all are invading their space. So, Steve, do you have any final words for anyone?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you, everyone. And we'll get that information out to you as soon as we confirm our next week's meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Bye-bye.